Chapter 2250. Versilia's beautiful face was covered in a layer of haze when she heard this, and she was extremely vexed in her heart. Earlier, she thought that she would definitely win. After all, no matter who it was, they would definitely die after being struck by her sword. But who would have imagined that Dustless was a complete freak and was completely fine after receiving her sword strike head-on? In other words, if she couldn't kill Dustless, it meant that Versilia had lost. Naturally, she had to fulfill her promise as the loser and serve Dustless to sleep. "Big sister, are you okay?" Alice looked at Versilia with some fear. She was sure that Versilia was on the verge of exploding at any moment. "Dustless, you better stop before you go too far." Alice moved to Dustless's side and grabbed the corner of his shirt. Her face was red as she said, "You actually want to sleep with Big Sister? You are very ambitious. However, do you want to sleep with a bomb that could explode at any moment?" "No, it should be 2 bombs. If you dare do that, Claire will definitely not let you off." "Hee, isn't that more interesting?" Dustless didn't mind. Instead, he was very interested. "I have never experienced sleeping with a bomb in my life. It sounds quite exciting." "Exciting?" Alice's pretty face twitched, and she was speechless. Sleeping beside a bomb that could blow her into smithereens at any moment, anyone would feel fear and dread. This fellow actually said that it was exciting. This really refreshed Alice's understanding of the world. "That's enough, Alice." After a while, Versilia waved her hand and said in a carefree tone, "Since I have lost, I will fulfill my promise. Isn't it just sleeping with you? I will agree to it." This, Alice didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She knew that this was like dry wood meeting fire. She couldn't stop it even if she wanted to. "Big sister, you are on your own." After taking a deep look at Versilia, Alice turned and left to patrol the other areas of the academy. Sleeping with, actually, the reason why Alice had stopped Versilia was because she was rather unhappy. In the past, she had always been competing with Claire and Linslet. Now that her elder sister had suddenly joined in, Alice really felt a headache coming on and was caught unprepared. Forget it. Let's take it one step at a time. Alice, who couldn't figure it out, didn't dwell on it any longer. Things would cross that bridge when they came to it. Sometimes, she should just let nature take its course. TSK. Come in." Pointing inside the room, Dustless smiled and said, "When we're sleeping tonight, don't touch me, or I'll throw you out." Versilia lowered her head when she heard this. She did not look at Dustless. She knew that this guy was invincible when it came to bickering. Arguing with him would only be asking for humiliation. Surprisingly clean. Walking into Dustless's bedroom, Versilia was stunned. It wasn't particularly luxurious, but it was very clean. The various decorations were very orderly and looked very natural. At first glance, it gave her a feeling of being dazzled. "It's rare to see a man as clean as you." Versilia took the initiative to say something to Dustless and immediately shut her mouth. "That's for sure. Didn't I say before that I'm a clean freak?" Dustless smiled naturally and said with a naughty smile, "Okay, now take off your clothes. Remember, take them off completely. It would be a tragedy if the smell of your clothes spread to me. I'm afraid of getting sick." Hearing this, Versilia, who couldn't take it anymore, had veins popping out on her forehead. "You're the one who's sick. You bastard, why don't you go?" Versilia stopped herself and tactfully kept her mouth shut. No matter how much she scolded, she would be the one at a disadvantage in the end. Moreover, Dustless might even deliberately take revenge on her. That would be a tragedy. "Just you wait. When it's time for the competition, I'll return the humiliation you gave me today in double." Versilia bit her tongue lightly. The pain cleared her mind a little. Finally, under Dustless's gaze, she took off all her clothes. She did not leave anything behind, and her impeccable figure was exposed right before his eyes. Versilia's body wasn't the hot type. In Dustless's eyes, her cleavage was like an airport. It was too flat. However, Versilia's skin was as white as snow. Every inch of her skin was as white as milk. Under the light, it was so dazzling that Dustless felt a little dizzy. Not bad. When you grow up in the future, you'll develop slowly. Dustless nodded slowly. His tone was very casual, and his shifty eyes looked very experienced. Stinky pervert, just you wait. Versilia's face was so red that blood could drip out. She secretly swore in her heart that one day in the future, when Dustless falls into her hands, she would make this guy regret living in this world. I know you're thinking of how to take revenge on me. Dustless carefully observed Versilia's eyes. He saw the almost tangible flames of anger, but he didn't care. In the end, he slowly smiled and said, "That's why I'm going to torture you even more now. I'll leave you with a cruel shadow that you'll never forget. This way, you can work hard, turn humiliation into motivation, improve your strength, and take revenge on me in the future. Quickly thank me for my greatness, little girl." Hearing that, Versilia's stomach was about to explode. This guy was too shameless. Even when he was molesting someone, he could say a bunch of great truths that made people speechless. The most deranged thing was that Wu-Chin wanted to sleep with her, and he still wanted Versilia to thank him. His shamelessness had reached the acme of perfection. Versilia really wanted to ask him how exactly did he train himself to be this shameless. Also, I hate traitors the most in my life. I can't change this bad habit of mine. Boom, boom, boom. Dustless launched an attack as soon as he finished speaking. His big hand suddenly pressed down on the ground and smashed Katsuki Subaru to the ground. Blood immediately spurted out of his mouth. You bastard! Katsuki Subaru was furious. She glared at Dustless. When she was about to curse him, a series of big feet fell from the sky and landed on her face. Who asked you to go against me? You're courting death. Who asked you to think that you can compete with me with a trash skill? Who asked you to be a traitor? Every time he roared, a red footprint would be left on Kaiue Subaru's face. In less than a minute, Kaiue Subaru's face had swelled up and became as red as his thick buttocks. At that time, there were crimson footprints all over his face. What was worse was that no one stopped Dustless. Everyone turned a blind eye. First, everyone was afraid of Dustless's strength. Second, Katsuki Subaru deserved to be beaten. He knew that he was no match for Dustless, but he kept provoking him. He deserved to be beaten. That's enough, Dustless. That's enough. Amelia couldn't stand it anymore and pulled Dustless away. If he really killed Katsuki Subaru, it would be terrible. She didn't want Dustless to be known as a murderer. This kid. Can he really change the world? What an idiot. What an incompetent piece of trash. Can such a person really fulfill my dreams? Roswald looked gloomy and looked at Katsuki Subaru in despair. He knew that this guy was from another world, and he also got the hint of the future from the gospel. The general content was that Katsuki Subaru could change the world. But this cowardly look really made Roswald desperate. Forget it, let's take one step at a time. Maybe it's not that Katsuki Subaru is useless, but Dustless is too evil. Roswald comforted himself. He was also deeply helpless about this. He went to Katsuki Subaru and released a healing magic. No matter what happened to Katsuki Subaru in the end, for Roswald, a small healing magic was nothing, and if this guy really rose in the future, maybe he would be very grateful for his kindness. Everyone, go back. Tomorrow, we will go to the palace together. You can witness the coronation of the new king together. Dustless rubbed Amelia's head and smiled slightly. Goodbye. Everyone looked at each other and left reluctantly. Even if they were unhappy, they couldn't do anything about it. Dustless was too strong. Even if everyone joined forces, they still wouldn't be able to defeat this guy. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2252. Versilia wanted to cry, but no tears came out. At the same time, she hated Dustless even more. If this guy hadn't angered her, how could she have done such a rude thing? So everything started with Dustless. It was all Dustless's fault. Just wait and see. Before leaving, Versilia didn't forget to glare deeply at Dustless. She wanted to remember this hateful face forever and take revenge in the future. Still not giving up. Dustless could only sigh. This woman's brain was made of elm wood. Even now, she still wanted to take revenge on him without any signs of regret. The next morning, as soon as the sun rose, an uninvited guest came. Bang bang bang. Hurry up and open the door, or I'll kick it down. Perverted beast, charcoal. The sound of someone knocking on the door came from outside the bedroom. At first, Dustless didn't know who it was, but after hearing the familiar words, perverted beast, and charcoal, he was immediately sure that it was Claire. Really, looking for trouble so early in the morning? Is it because of that chick from yesterday? Dustless lazily crawled out from under the blankets, his face showing a hint of confusion. Who asked Claire to be known for being a jealous lover? What's the matter so early in the morning? Sure enough, as soon as he opened the door, Claire glared at him furiously. Dustless felt like his body was about to ignite from being stared at by that fiery gaze. Where's that stray cat that stole a fish? Who would have thought that Claire wouldn't even look at Dustless and directly barged in? Moreover, she searched through Dustless's memories and searched for the others. She was most likely looking for Versilia. Strange, I clearly heard Alice say, no need to look for her. I chased her away last night. I only wanted to teach that chick a lesson. Dustless explained, if you use this doubt in your studies, then your strength will definitely improve by leaps and bounds. Humph, none of your business. Claire's hair stood on end. She looked at Shameless unkindly and warned fiercely, if you dare to flirt with other women again, I'll chop off your manhood. After saying this, Claire intentionally or unintentionally glanced at Dustless's most important place as a man. Who taught you all this? Dustless's old face darkened, and his body involuntarily trembled. Claire didn't understand this mess, so someone must have taught her. Headmistress Gruas, Claire said without hesitation, not realizing that she had betrayed Gruas. As expected, it's that old woman. Only she could come up with such a sinister idea. Dustless nodded slightly. He was not surprised and asked, cut the crap. Why are you looking for me so early in the morning? You forgot something so important? Pouting, Claire was extremely dissatisfied. She shouted, in a few days, we'll be fighting with your little lover. Of course we have to train faster. After all, that guy is very strong. Little lover. Hearing this, Dustless froze at first, then said speechlessly, you mean Versilia? There's really nothing going on between me and that guy. Humph, who are you trying to fool? Even Alice doesn't believe that you're innocent. Claire snorted, then scolded, why are you still standing there like a fool? After saying this, Claire hurriedly left, leaving Dustless alone to change his clothes. I'm really getting worse and worse. Even a little girl dares to scold me, Dustless ridiculed in his heart. He was too lazy to lower himself to Claire's level. In the end, she was just a little girl. It wasn't worth making a big fuss. About 15 minutes later, Dustless finally arrived. Linslet, Claire, and Alice had been waiting for a long time. In addition, Princess Fianna was also there. Although Dustless killed God Fengzhou, Fianna also understood that some things could not be blamed on Dustless. In the end, it was God Fengzhou's fault. He deserved to be killed. No matter who it was impossible to let go of an enemy who hated you. Good morning, everyone, Dustless greeted with a smile. It's still early. The sun is already shining on your butt. Linslet's seductive eyes were like silk, and her tone was full of jealousy. She deliberately said loudly, I'm afraid last night was a wet dream, right? Humph. 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 It would have been better if she didn't say it. These words immediately attracted the firepower of the girls. Everyone snorted coldly. Go train. Dustless was too lazy to refute. If he didn't do anything wrong, he wouldn't be afraid of ghosts knocking on his door. Anyway, there was nothing wrong, so why bother explaining? Let them imagine it. Big sister will definitely not let you go. Along the way, the few of them chatted as they walked. Alice looked at Dustless and discontentedly advised, you even dared to have designs on elder sister. Back then, she only lost to the strongest elf envoy, Liena Subble. She's very strong. Why is it Liena Subble everywhere? I can tell you clearly, that scum is already dead. Dustless impatiently explained. Wasn't God Fengzhou that Liena Subble? He had already been killed by him. It was just that no one knew. Serves you right. Fianna glanced at Dustless with schadenfreude. She was the only one who knew the truth. Don't worry, I definitely won't let big sister hurt you. Seeing Dustless's gloomy face, Alice softly comforted him. He. I'm really flattered to have you protect me. Dustless only laughed dryly and did not refute. After all, this was Alice's good intention. Yo, that trash who likes to live off a woman is here. At this moment, an extremely discordant and sarcastic voice sounded. The few of them frowned. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 gifts plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2253. Hearing this, the group of nobles and ministers looked at Dustless with displeasure. They were inwardly furious. This fellow spoke carelessly and didn't put these high and mighty figures in his eyes at all. He even treated them as his underlings and ordered them around at will. He was simply abominable and too presumptuous. What? Did you not hear what I said? Do you need me to repeat it? Dustless's expression turned cold as he sighed inwardly. Dustless. What's wrong with you all of a sudden? Amelia approached Dustless and tugged at his sleeve, her tone puzzled. Usually, Dustless rarely spoke on occasions like this. He was too lazy to pay attention to this group of people and disdained to talk to them. However, at this moment, it was as if he had eaten gunpowder. His tone was extremely unfriendly, as if he was deliberately provoking this group of aristocrats. You still can't tell? Dustless's eyes turned cold like two blades. These rotten fellows are hemming and hawing. Clearly, they don't want to give the throne to you. They must have other plans. My mouth is really stinky. What I said yesterday really came true. Amelia raised her head and quietly sized up this group of nobles. Although they were all silent, their gazes were filled with disgust and displeasure. There was even a trace of undetectable killing intent. Letting someone who looks like the witch of jealousy become king is simply insane. I will never allow it. Me too. What a joke. Does she think that Amelia can become king if everyone else gives up? Stop dreaming. Even if all the other candidates for the throne are dead, I will not agree to her taking the throne. Everyone is right. Amelia is exactly the same as the witch of jealousy. If this kind of person becomes king, it will definitely cause chaos. Who knows, there might even be a rebellion. This will shake the foundation of the kingdom. Still want to be king? This kind of person might be the reincarnation of the witch of jealousy. In my opinion, she should be burned at the stake. After a moment of silence, the oppressive atmosphere finally exploded. Everyone couldn't take it anymore, and they all looked at Amelia with disgust. If looks could kill, perhaps Amelia would have been turned into minced meat by now. These self-proclaimed nobles and gentlemanly ministers all spouted all sorts of vicious words. You guys don't know what's good for you. Hearing that, Dustless erupted with a monstrous aura of viciousness. Endless killing intent swept out like a tidal wave. Poof! Puff! 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 Under this terrifying aura, the faces of all the nobles present changed drastically. They were shaken by the powerful aura and spat out blood. Their internal organs were about to shatter, and their bodies were trembling. Everyone looked at Dustless in panic. They saw that his eyes were red and his face was covered with a layer of frost. There was a devilish smile on his lips. You want to go back on your word? That's fine, but I can also do whatever I want according to my will. Since you guys broke the rules of the game, it doesn't matter if I start a massacre. Wu Chen sneered. His eyes were crimson red, and a devilish arrogant smile hung on the corners of his mouth. Soon, I'll let all of you see how kind and cute the witch of jealousy is compared to me. The witch of jealousy is kind and cute. Hearing that, everyone was speechless. The witch of jealousy almost devoured the world 400 years ago. How could such a person be associated with kindness and cuteness? Knights, quickly suppress this traitor and that damned witch Amelia, Pucci. Before this minister could finish his words, Dustless blinked his eyes. The scarlet eye power went berserk, and a black, ominous flame suddenly descended and devoured him at the fastest speed. Ah! Help, quickly put out the fire. The minister suddenly screamed. Several colleagues around him were shocked and quickly went to put out the fire. However, before they could touch the minister, the black flame spread by itself and burned the minister who rushed to put out the fire. Damn it, what's going on? Quickly come and save me. Damn it, what kind of flame is this, why can't it be extinguished? The ministers screamed in pain. Their words were full of endless pain. The cruelest way to die is to be burned alive. That kind of severe pain is unimaginable. This is Amaterasu, one of my dojutsu. I advise you not to act rashly. Otherwise, these moving flames may lock onto you next. Wu Chen spoke with fervor and assurance. His smile was so splendid and gentle, but everyone present felt a chill run down their spine. Rebellion, rebellion, knights, quickly suppress this traitor for me. Many people were very stubborn and immediately ordered the knights to suppress Dustless. Clang! 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 Countless sharp swords came out of their sheaths and surrounded Dustless and his party at lightning speed. Everyone's expression was full of hostility. Let go, Dustless. Julius and Reinhardt stood in front of Dustless and looked at him vigilantly. Both of them were sweating. They knew that Dustless was powerful, but they were helpless. In the end, they blamed this group of nobles for being too insidious and deliberately making things difficult for Amelia. Ha ha ha. What a joke, Reinhardt and Julius. You two defeated foes still want to stop me. That's too naive. Dustless laughed contemptuously. Then, a terrifying energy halo erupted. Feeling Dustless like a volcanic eruption, everyone's face changed dramatically. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2254. The impact of these words on Versilia was no less than being struck by lightning. Her head was buzzing non-stop and she felt dizzy. She clenched her fists tightly and stared at Dustless. Her piercing gaze made people not dare to look at her. It was as if she could see through a person's heart. Now that things have come to this, are you still going to pretend, little girl? Dustless stared at Versilia and suddenly thought of something. He smiled and said, "Looks like that Liena Subble has traumatized you." Humph. Hearing this, Versilia only snorted and said expressionlessly, "Spell engraving? What is that? I don't understand." Versilia was stubborn. Obviously, she did not plan to confess. "Yo, you are quite stubborn." Dustless was too lazy to ask more and continued, "But I have to remind you that the divine aura you released yesterday was very strong. Anyone with a little knowledge would be able to see where the problem lies." "Is that so?" Hearing this, Versilia was stunned. After being attacked by Dustless yesterday, she finally released her divine aura out of anger. She did not expect Dustless to see the problem. This guy is actually so observant. From the level of my divine aura, he can see if I have implanted the spell engraving. Versilia's heart was silent. Dustless looked sloppy, but he was actually very smart. She did not expect him to see the flaw in such a simple moment. "I have something to remind you." Putting down the teacup in his hand, Dustless's face revealed a rare serious expression. "Say it." Versilia opened her mouth. Although her tone was still cold, she finally had a different opinion of Dustless. He was a talent. "You know your place." Dustless smiled faintly. Although Versilia's tone was very cold, when it fell into his ears, it was a request for help. Perhaps Versilia was aware of the danger of the incantation engraving, so she asked Dustless for help. She just didn't want to lose face. My shoulder suddenly feels a little sore. What should I do?" Dustless smiled and looked at Versilia with a teasing expression. His watery eyes stared at her pretty face. His meaning was self-evident. This bastard is doing this again. Seeing this, Versilia's mouth twitched a few times, and she asked angrily, "What does your shoulder being sore have to do with you talking?" "It's not like his mouth is twitching." Dustless couldn't help but stare blankly when he heard this. Soon after, he awkwardly smiled and said, "That's right. Shoulder pain has nothing to do with mouth pain. However, you spoke too loudly just now and scared me. My mouth is starting to hurt again." Versilia almost threw the cup at him. This bastard was too despicable. She naturally understood what Dustless was hinting at. "Little girl, you have to think about it carefully. That spell engraving is really troublesome." Dustless suddenly said, "If you're lucky, you might just be a cripple. If you're unlucky, you'll definitely die. You win." Versilia hesitated for a while, and finally walked behind Dustless. Her small hands took the initiative to massage Dustless's shoulders and back like a servant. Now you admit that you used the spell engraving." Dustless turned his head and glanced at Versilia, and said faintly, "Any kind of strength obtained through trickery will hurt others and oneself. The effect of the spell engraving is great. Every elf has a meridian in their body that is responsible for unblocking the power of divine might. You know that, right?" "I know." Versilia nodded like a student. "Spell engraving. Once this thing is implanted into the body, although it can temporarily obtain a powerful divine might, it has a fatal effect." Dustless closed his eyes and was silent for a while, and said, "It can destroy all the meridian in an elf's body that is responsible for unblocking the divine might." "What?" Hearing this, Versilia's body suddenly trembled. She was shocked, and her small hands that were massaging Dustless's back suddenly increased their strength. Bang! Versilia heavily punched Dustless. It was completely a nerve reflex, and it hurt so much that Dustless clenched his teeth, but there was nothing he could do. After all, this girl did not do it on purpose. You're lying to me, right? After being silent for a while, Versilia looked at Dustless with hostility. Idiot, if I'm lying to you, why is it forbidden to use spell engraving on this continent? Dustless sneered and asked. This woman was smart all her life, but stupid this time. Is it true? Versilia's beautiful face turned ghastly pale when she heard these words. If what Wu Chen said was true, then her life was most probably finished. Just like what Dustless said, if the spell engraving only destroyed the meridian that unblocked the divine might, it could be considered lucky. Because if it was slightly more serious, Versilia might lose her life. However, even if it was the best result, Versilia could not accept it. If the meridian that unblocked the divine might was destroyed, it meant that she could no longer become an elf envoy. Thinking of this, Versilia's heart was filled with despair. Little girl, you still want to fight with me? Looking at the despondent Versilia, Dustless smiled and did not say anything. It was good for such a proud woman to suffer a blow, so that she would not be arrogant anymore. Oh, right. Versilia's eyes suddenly lit up as she suddenly thought of something. She stared at Dustless without blinking, and her breathing instantly became hurried. Dustless, Kuan, can you help me? Versilia's tone was gentle, and her eyes were like a painting, as if they were electrifying. Dustless looked at Versilia in disgust. Especially when she said, Dustless, Kuan, it gave him goosebumps. This woman wanted to tear him into pieces just now. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2255. At this moment, facing Dustless's mockery, everyone's anger was extinguished. No one continued to refute. The scene was so silent that even the sound of people's heartbeats could be faintly heard. The scene was unbelievably quiet, and the situation was even a little strange. The white whale, to this group of decadent nobles, was like a nightmare. Because this beast was inextricably linked to the witch of jealousy, it instantly awakened the bad memories in everyone's hearts. The white whale had once killed humans and destroyed countless villages. The white whale was everyone's nightmare. Every time it appeared, it was accompanied by a large-scale disaster. It was worth mentioning that the previous sword saint, Teresa Vanisrisha, who was also the wife of the sword demon Wilhelm, had fallen in a battle with the white whale. Therefore, the white whale was not only powerful, but it was also infamous and was feared by people. Everyone, cough cough cough, that's what happened. You all heard it clearly. One of the ministers with white hair and beard suddenly stood up, instantly attracting everyone's attention. It seemed that he was a very respectable person. That monster, the white whale, has come out to cause trouble again. Soon, I'm afraid that the world will be in chaos again. So, we have unanimously decided, this old thing said a lot of nonsense. Dustless's ears were getting calluses from listening to it, but the general meaning was very simple and direct. The person who killed the white whale would be the new king, no matter who it was. Old man, are you serious? Anastasia was overjoyed. If that was the case, didn't she still have a chance to become the king? As long as that hateful beast was killed, whoever it was would be able to become the king without any resistance. Change just because you said so. Dustless, however, had a straight face. He was like a difficult king of hell. Whoever looked at him would uncontrollably shiver with a face full of fear, as if they had seen the Grim Reaper with a scythe. In most people's hearts, Dustless had already demonized, and they regarded him as a demon king who was even more terrifying and powerful than the witch of jealousy. The minister who spoke earlier looked at Dustless angrily, but at the same time, he felt helpless. Even these knights were no match for Dustless. Wasn't he, an old man, 1,000 miles away from Dustless? In fact, it wasn't just him. Everyone lacked confidence when facing Dustless. After all, the difference in strength was destined to be huge. Lady Amelia, with no other choice, everyone could only look at Amelia. Compared to Dustless, she was simply like a kind and pure angel that was extremely amiable. I. Amelia clenched her fists tightly, not knowing what to do as she was being stared at by countless eyes. Don't be afraid. Just say what you really think. Wu Chen patted Amelia's shoulder and encouraged her with a gentle smile. Chapter 2256. The Witch of Strong Lust, that is, Rosswire's master. In order to force his master to resurrect again, Rosswire could sacrifice everything and use all the people he could use, but his plan was ruined by Dustless. How could he not be angry? Boom boom boom. A majestic magic burst out, and behind Rosswire, several bright energy balls suddenly swept out with infinite power. He looked at Dustless with a gloomy face. Yo, you want to fight with me? It's not that I look down on you, but your arms and legs are thin. I really don't want to hurt you, but I can pinch you to death with just a few moves. Dustless narrowed his eyes and asked jokingly, have you seen real darkness and brutality? Do you want to experience it for yourself? The feeling of being cut into pieces. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. When Dustless's words fell, it was like a cold wind blowing. Everyone felt a chill down their spines, cold sweat broke out on their heads, and they looked at him with a cold face. This guy is indeed synonymous with brutality. Rosswire's face was extremely ugly, and his oppressive aura was actually restrained in an instant. Although the words were unpleasant, it has to be said that Dustless's words were still full of deterrence. He was terrified. Since you are Lady Amelia's knight, you should help her get the throne, Dustless, this is your destiny. Unable to beat Dustless, Rosswire could only launch a verbal attack. Dustless, do you hate me very much? Do you think I have no backbone and perseverance? I give up when I encounter setbacks. Amelia looked nervously at Dustless, holding her small hand. Is this important? Dustless smiled slightly, showing a warm smile. It doesn't matter how it is, as long as you are happy, then it's fine as long as you have a clear conscience. It doesn't matter who is right or wrong, as long as you have a clear conscience. Thank you. A warm smile blossomed on Amelia's face, as warm as the sun. Her gaze towards Dustless had also changed, becoming a little blurred. Amelia had always had a man of few words behind her back. He would not say much, nor would he ask much. He would only use his actions to help her. When she needed him the most, he would stand up for her. Don't tell me you've fallen for me. Dustless asked in a serious tone as he noticed that Amelia was staring at him intently. If it was in the past, Amelia would have admitted to such a question immediately. But this time, she remained silent and her face was a little red. It seemed that Dustless had guessed her thoughts correctly. Caw caw caw. At this moment, the sound of glass shattering suddenly sounded. Looking up, Kyu-Imeo's face was covered in tears, and his eyes were red. Damn Dustless, you will die a horrible death. You stole my girlfriend, you bastard. Kyu-Imeo roared in his heart, and his scarlet eyes were about to fall out. Boy, you want to fight with me? Ignorant people are fearless. How ridiculous. Dustless lowered his head and glanced at Kyu-Imeo, and said in a very narcissistic tone, you are not as handsome as me. You are ugly, and your strength is not even 1/10,000th of mine. You are even weaker than an ordinary soldier. How can you beat me? In front of countless people, Dustless was full of ridicule. Although his words were unpleasant, that was what he meant. And what Dustless said was the truth. In all aspects, Kyu-Imeo was not as good as him. The crowd just watched in silence, and no one stood out to oppose Dustless. After all, what he said was the truth. Instead, many people looked at Kuimeo with a sneer. So, Lady Amelia, are you sure you want to withdraw from this king selection? Some nobles asked expectantly. In their eyes, Amelia was an inauspicious witch of jealousy, the incarnation of a devil. Let alone being a king, everyone would feel nauseous and uncomfortable when such a person appeared in their line of sight. However, Dustless was too strong, so no one dared to refute Amelia. Yes, Amelia said coldly. These nobles did not have a good impression of her, and she did not have a good impression of them either. She even felt disgusted with them. It's good that you give up. Many nobles looked at each other, their faces full of joy. Wait, Amelia has given up, but I haven't. Dustless suddenly said, looking at Perseus, a meaningful smile on his face. Since Amelia has given up, then I will join Perseus. I will become his knight and help him become king. What? The moment these words fell, everyone was startled. They looked at Dustless with astonishment. This guy really didn't play by the rules. As soon as Amelia announced her withdrawal from the king's selection, he turned to Quirkseu. Dustless, you. What are you thinking? Not only were the outsiders stunned, but even Amelia and Perseus were still in shock. They looked at Dustless in confusion, not knowing what this guy was thinking. It can't be. Perseus's eyes shone brightly. He suddenly thought of the reason and smiled bitterly. Do you really hate me that much? Is this a return gift for breaking off the engagement? To be honest, I've never hated you. On the contrary, I admire you. But admiration is not the same as love. Secondly, our worldviews are too different. You're still very young. In the future, you still have a sky that belongs to you, so I'll help you become the king. As for the matter of our marriage, it'll also be annulled at this point. Wuchen spoke frankly, explaining the reason within. I see. Hearing this, everyone came to a sudden realization and looked at Quirkseu enviously. In this way, the supreme position of king would definitely be in her bag. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 ratings plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2257. Don't be complacent too early. Everything is not as simple as you think. Do you think you can kill the white whale just because you want to? Do you think he's a docile sheep? Don't be naive. You're so naive. If the white whale was really so weak, then it wouldn't have been able to wreak havoc for hundreds of years without anyone being able to stop it. Even the previous sword saint died in the battle with the white whale. Kaitsuki Subaru, who had been holding back his anger, seemed to have found a good opportunity to show off his superiority. He quickly stood up to attack Dustless's confidence and ridiculed him in a sarcastic manner. Since the two of them were mortal enemies, Kaitsuki Subaru did not care. Even if he was killed, it did not matter. After all, he had the skill, death reincarnation, and could resurrect indefinitely. That's right. How can the white whale be killed so easily? Not to mention the strength of that beast, even its whereabouts are difficult for us to track. Mr. Kaitsuki Subaru's analysis makes sense. Some people think that they are arrogant just because they are strong. Naive. Kaitsuki Subaru's words immediately resonated with a large number of people who were unhappy with Dustless. They laughed disdainfully and tried to attack him as much as possible. Previously, this group of people had been humiliated by Dustless. If they did not find a chance to regain their dignity, how could they establish themselves in the future? Wouldn't they be treated as a clown? As expected, Dustless was not angry. Instead, a meaningful smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Seeing Kaitsuki Subaru's confident look, he understood something in his heart. It seems that he has experienced death reincarnation and knows the white whale like the back of his hand. That's why he dares to say such words. Dustless smiled and did not say anything. He quietly watched Kaitsuki Subaru put on a show and ignored all the mocking eyes around him. Why bother with a group of ants at the level of a small figure? It would only lower his status. A huge tiger would never look back at him because of a few barks. He could just ignore them. However, Dustless could stay calm, but some people were not willing to. Amelia and Kurth looked at Amelia unkindly. Their eyes were filled with the resentment of a young girl, and they stared at Kaitsuki Subaru with great dissatisfaction. If it wasn't for the fact that there were too many people and the situation wasn't suitable, perhaps Kaitsuki Subaru would have been beaten up already. You guys. What kind of charm does this guy have? I refuse to accept this. Keiichi Subaru screamed in his heart, especially when he saw Amelia's disgusted look. It deeply hurt him. He swore in his heart, "Look, I will make Anastasia sit on the throne, I will make you all look up to me, I will make you all regret looking down on me." Therefore, this guy was very insidious and despicable. In order to resurrect his master, the Witch of Lust, he would do anything and didn't care about sacrificing anyone. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2258. Is he really as hateful as you say? Kurth looked at Dustless suspiciously. It was hard to doubt Roswald. After all, he had always been extremely loyal to Amelia and supported her to participate in the king's selection, even to the point of death. Do you think it's necessary for me to frame him? Dustless asked softly, and immediately shook his head. Even you were deceived. It can only mean that the acting talent is too smart and real, but this is normal. If you want to uncover Roswald's true face, you still need special evidence. There was no doubt that his biggest trump card was Alyssa, who was supposed to be dead. When the time came, she would stand up and testify against Roswald's crimes. No matter what, I believe you. Kurth's pretty face showed a brilliant smile, like a blooming flower, beautiful beyond compare. You believe in me so much. To be honest, I'm really flattered. Dustless rubbed his nose and looked at Quirxia strangely. He suddenly thought of something. About the marriage you mentioned before, you want to break off the engagement. Kurth asked faintly, his tone suddenly flat, obviously extremely dissatisfied. Break off the engagement. Hearing this, Wu Qin was incomparably astonished, and he asked tongue-tied, break off the engagement. Don't say that, or the misunderstanding will be big. When did we have a marriage contract? It used to be just a discussion of marriage. Why did it become breaking off the engagement now? You still don't know. Kurth's mouth showed a mysterious arc, and he chuckled. The whole King City knows that we are engaged. If you want to break off the engagement now, how can I stand in the future? Even if I become king, I will live in your shadow for the rest of my life. Dustless's face darkened, and the corner of his mouth trembled a few times. You spread the news, right? No one knows about our marriage at all. It seems to be limited to you, me, and Amelia. Amelia naturally wouldn't be so bored to go out and spread it, so it can only be you. This news, you spread it yourself, right? Dustless was depressed. To be honest, he was really surprised that Kurth could be so obsessed with him. So what? Kurth calmly said, what's done can't be undone. The whole kingdom knows that we are engaged. Are you going to divorce me? Let me tell you, if this is the case, let alone the king, even I myself will never be able to raise my head. If you would rather be a heartless scum and make me unable to raise my head for the rest of my life, then I don't care. I'll just take it that I was blind and misjudged you. Motherf***ker. He's obviously pestering me endlessly, but it really makes me speechless. Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He was too lazy to continue arguing about this. He would just take it one step at a time. Dustless suddenly smelled a lot of blood in the air, and suddenly remembered an extremely evil sect, and his murderous intent suddenly skyrocketed. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 evaluation votes plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2259. What a disgusting smell. Rem's delicate nose wrinkled slightly. Apparently, she also smelled a lot of blood in the air. It was supposed to be fresh air, but every time she took a breath, she would smell a strong pungent smell full of the smell of slaughter, which made her want to vomit uncontrollably. Moreover, what made Rem most uncomfortable was that this smell was somewhat familiar, and she had always hated it. It's them. Rem's cute and delicate face, which looked like a porcelain doll, suddenly twisted as if he had suddenly thought of some tragic experience. Damn the witch cult. Seeing this, Dustless didn't say anything. He smiled knowingly, stretched again, and said, "It seems that I didn't guess wrong. It's really that group of worms. Rem, are you afraid?" Rem is not afraid. Rem didn't even think about it when she heard this. She shook her head directly and said with hatred, "Rem can't wait to slaughter those disgusting scum with my own hands." After her voice fell, Rem's little face twisted again, emitting a dense hostility, and her little face was covered with a layer of frost. The two sisters were ghosts since they were young and had a happy childhood, but one day, this happy and harmonious childhood was broken. The witch cult suddenly came to their door. Not to mention the destruction of the ghost race, Rem and Ram's parents were killed in that battle, and even the horn on Ram's forehead was cut off because of the witch cult. Therefore, the two sisters hated the witch cult to the bone and were extremely sensitive to their smell. When Kaituki Subaru lived in Roswald's house, the reason why he was killed one after another was that in addition to being somewhat suspicious, his body exuded the smell of the witch, so he was killed several times by the two sisters. Now that the witch cult suddenly appeared, it immediately aroused Rem's hatred. "Is that so? You look like you hate them, huh? That's for the best. I also don't like that group of trash. Now rush in and destroy those disgusting fat worms." Dustless ordered coldly. Rem understands. Hearing this, Rem's face showed a charming smile, but it looked extremely bloodthirsty and sinister. Boom! 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 With Dustless's order, Rem drove the carriage extremely quickly and rushed into the lifeless village. Everywhere were corpses that had died miserably. There were even some who were cruelly dismembered, such a dead face, as expected of the scum of the Demoness sect. Dustless glanced at the fist. Seeing that there were no corpses of Amelia and the others, he heaved a sigh of relief. Swish! 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 Just 1 or 2 minutes after breaking into the deathly silent village, Dustless felt that he was being stared at by countless obscure eyes. It was as if a hungry demon had encountered a fragrant delicacy, and they swallowed their saliva. Everyone's eyes were filled with strong greed. "Rem, don't worry about me. Kill as many as you can." Chapter 2260. Reinhardt was in a dilemma. How should he choose? To be honest, he really didn't know what to do. Although there was a loophole, it would undoubtedly ruin Reinhardt's reputation as a knight. "Idiot, you are still hesitating at this time." Keiichi Subaru scolded in his heart. But when he thought of Reinhardt's importance, he patiently explained, "You helped Ferret become the future king, and the world will praise your achievements. Who will care about this? Give me a day to think about it." Reinhardt waved his hand impatiently and left alone. He was extremely conflicted and was caught in a dilemma. In the big room, only Keiichi Subaru and his second natural enemy, Julius, were left. You are really a demon. After a while, Julius glanced at Keiichi Subaru coldly, and a strange color flashed in his eyes. I am a demon. Keiichi Subaru frowned, thinking that Julius was insinuating that he was being scolded. He suddenly became unhappy and said unhappily, "What do you mean by that?" "Nothing." Julius sat down calmly, closed his eyes, and said slowly, "Reinhardt is a knight among knights, and he carries the title of a sword saint. His will is unquestionable, but at this moment, you've shaken his will with just your flowery words. Aren't you a devil?" Hee. Hearing this, Keiichi Subaru suddenly laughed. She was so bright and proud. She said proudly, "Is this my illusion? Or is there something wrong with my ears? Julius, it sounds like you are praising me." "Keiichi Subaru, you can think that, but in my eyes, you are still an idiot who overestimates himself," Julius said calmly and seriously. "You asshole." However, such a simple sentence made Keiichi Subaru furious. His tone made it sound like he was born an idiot who couldn't be saved. Is that not the case? Julius looked at Keiichi Subaru deeply and said coldly, "Your skills are not as good as others, but you still dare to provoke others. If this is not an idiot, then what is? I don't think I've gone too far. I can't deny that you have an enterprising heart and know how to work hard. You hope to create your own future with your own hands. I admire this very much, but..." Julius suddenly raised his voice, revealing mockery and disdain. "Everything, whether it's a human, an animal, or a lifeless thing, has its own limits. Your dream is not proportional to your ability. You give me the impression that you're like a worm in a ditch that wants to soar into the sky. It's ridiculous. It's too funny. You bastard." Hearing this, Keiichi Subaru's eyes were burning. She couldn't help but roll up her sleeves and throw a punch at Julius. Bang! Julius raised his palm and caught Keiichi Subaru's fist effortlessly. He shook his head and said, "Too weak. You are more fragile than I thought. I really don't understand why an idiot like you dares to provoke Dustless. Is it just because Lady Amelia likes him? How ugly!" Bang! Then Julius's eyes turned cold. Chapter 2261. Translator, Atlas Studios Editor. Atlas Studios. In an unfamiliar world, Restia was terrified. She stared at this wonderful world with her mouth agape. Although Restia gave people the impression that she was extremely bold, she was ultimately a girl. Furthermore, Dustless had always been cruel and didn't play by the rules. Who knew what kind of cruel treatment he had suffered? What kind of strange place is this? Another world? No, how can it be another world? That kid isn't a god. Restia quickly shook her head. She couldn't believe it and guessed inwardly, could it be an illusion? When illusions reach a certain level of perfection, it can also reach the point of passing off the fake as the real thing. Girl. A ripple appeared in the void, and a wave that was visible to the naked eye struck. That indifferent voice resounded in Restia's mind without any warning. An illusion is an illusion. How can it be passed off as real? Do you really think I'm a child? Inside Tsukuyami's space, Restia sneered. An illusion is an illusion. How can it be passed off as real? What's fake will always be fake. Is that really the case? The slightly amused voice sounded again. Following that, Dustless suddenly appeared in front of Restia like a ghost, giving her a fright. Is this guy's strength? He's so strong. Restia's heart trembled. She was still hoping to avenge God Fingzhou, but Dustless's ability to be undetectable had refreshed Restia's understanding. The chances of revenge were 0. Why don't we give it a try? Dustless's lips curled into a playful smile. I refuse. Without even thinking, Restia replied without hesitation. It wasn't beneficial to her, so why should she agree? That's not up to you. This is Tsukuyomi's world. Everything in the world is under my control. You have to agree even if you don't want to, Dustless said frankly, his heart as calm as still water. Anyway, it's an illusion. It's ultimately fake. Ristia curled her lips in disdain and immediately grabbed the tender flesh of her left arm with her right hand. Since it's an illusion, I'll definitely pinch myself. Ah, it hurts. It actually hurts. Ristia opened her mouth in disbelief. Isn't this an illusion world? This guy created a world in the blink of an eye. This is too inconceivable. Looking at the unfamiliar world, Celestia was dumbfounded. What kind of terrifying ability was this? Creating a world in the blink of an eye. Hallucination, it must be a hallucination. Although the pain was real, Lestia still stubbornly believed that it was a hallucination. In fact, it was also an illusion, but Tsukuyomi was relatively special. You rejected my offer, didn't you? Dustless looked at Restia with a smile. Suddenly, his expression changed and turned cold. My temper has been very bad recently. You'd better be sensible. If I do something crazy, it won't be good for everyone. Haven't you done enough crazy things? Chapter 2262. You want me to settle it? Lestia was in a dilemma. She felt as though she had smashed a rock on herself. She revealed the matter of Versilia and Dustless's adultery just to cause conflict between them and make Dustless's life miserable. But now, not only did she not dig a hole for Dustless, but she also dug a hole for herself. Lestia's pretty face was gloomy. She wanted to say something, but she found it difficult to do so. She couldn't be laughed at by Dustless, right? If you can't settle it, I'll tell you, Lestia. I'll show you what a real beast is. I was too kind back in the Tsukuyomi space. Leaving behind these words, Dustless left in a carefree manner. You call that being merciful? Lestia couldn't help but recall the tragic experience in the Tsukuyomi space. She was F***ed in various positions for 24 hours without stopping. It was a miracle that she didn't go into shock and could even walk. And now, Dustless said that he was merciful back then. How terrifying would it be when he mercilessly took revenge on her? Thinking of this, Lestia felt a chill run down her spine and hurriedly ran out. She couldn't afford to offend a pervert like Dustless, so she could only appease Claire and the others. Meanwhile, Dustless went to a special place, Dean Grievous's office. Damn it, it's here again. At this moment, Gruas didn't look like before. Her face was pale, like a patient with a serious illness. Her internal organs were engulfed by a heart-wrenching pain. She lay on the desk and wailed in pain, but she gritted her teeth and didn't let herself cry out. A long time ago, Grievous implanted a curse in her body, and her body accumulated a lot of damage over the years. Later, she became the champion of the Elven Sword Dance Festival. Back then, she made a wish after winning to prolong her life that was almost depleted by the curse. Fortunately, she succeeded. Grievous pulled through, but she was still tormented by her illness. Oh, it's rare to see you in such a sorry state. A ghostly voice suddenly sounded, and Grua stood up reflexively. Her gaze swept over to the source of the voice, and Dustless, who was munching on an apple, appeared before her eyes. You barged into my office without my permission. Brat, you sure have guts. Grievous's tone was cold, but there wasn't much blame in it. It was useless to blame or punish him. Dustless did not care about her at all. The so-called punishment was just asking for humiliation because Dustless did not carry it out at all. Old witch, looking at the pale Grievous, Dustless asked with a smile, you seem to be in a lot of pain. It doesn't feel good to implant a spell rune in your body, does it? What nonsense are you talking about? Don't spread rumors, or I could treat it as slandering me. Grey scolded angrily, but the panic in her eyes disappeared in a flash. The biggest secret in her life was casually spoken by Dustless. How could she not be surprised? Chapter 2263. Gulp. Being locked on by this powerful aura, Gruas gasped for breath. Due to the high frequency of her breathing, even her magnificent cleavage jumped out of her clothes. So strong, stronger than anyone I have seen before. Gruas's eyes flickered, and she couldn't hide her astonishment. At the same time, she gave up resisting. She was a person with foresight. Although she didn't know what Dustless's motive was, she was sure that if he wanted to kill her, she would be killed instantly. Moreover, her contract spirit, Earl, had been shattered by Dustless. It sounded ridiculous. As the most powerful Twilight Witch on the continent, Gruas would be killed instantly one day. If this news spread, everyone would be shocked and think that it was a joke. Retract your aura. I admit that I have implanted the incantation. Gruas didn't argue and replied. Since Dustless dared to look for her so confidently, he obviously had sufficient evidence. I have a way to treat the hidden illness in your body, Dustless said calmly, but in Gruas's earpiece, she was horrified. Impossible, such a troublesome thing can't be cured. Gruas shook her head repeatedly. She wouldn't believe it even if she was beaten to death. Dustless's words were too exaggerated. How could it be cured safely after implanting the incantation? This was definitely illogical. Of course, he could also imitate Gruas's method and become the champion of the Elf Sword Dance Festival and make a wish. However, this was a temporary solution. The incantation was still tormenting Gruas's body and mind. This burden didn't disappear. Come in, little girl. Right at this time, Dustless suddenly looked outside the door and said, feeling even more speechless, "You, this fellow, are too strict. Wherever I go, you have to follow me there. What if I leave this world one day?" Creak. Following Dustless's words, Versilia walked in with a smile and leaned on Dustless's shoulder intimately. Her head rubbed against Dustless's chest. Cough, cough, cough. Seeing this, Grievous felt even more indignant. She raised her eyebrows slightly. Where do you think your office is? It's not like it's a love nest for you couples to flirt with. You think my words are unbelievable? Dustless asked softly as his gaze focused on Grievous. It's not that I doubt your ability. It's just that some things are really impossible to achieve. It's too unreal. The burden brought by the healing mantra engraving is more than simply inconceivable, it's simply a fantasy. If it was anyone else who said this, she would definitely think that the other party was crazy. It was because Dustless was strong that she did not chase him out. Dustless patted Versilia's head, and she walked out obediently. Seriously, if I don't show you the results, you won't believe me, Celia. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, an extremely powerful divine aura erupted from Versilia's weak body. Due to the close distance, it was as if she was in a level 10 storm, and her body was out of control. Impossible. 3 years ago, when you competed with Liena Subble, you didn't have such a powerful divine aura. How did your divine aura grow to this extent in just 3 years? Sensing the extent of Versilia's divine aura, Grievous asked in a deep voice. She looked at Versilia with eyes like torches. She suddenly guessed a possibility. You're right. She also implanted the mantra engraving. Dustless spoke for Versilia and said lazily, and she suffered the same pain as you before, but it was cured later. Really? Hearing this, Grievous jumped up in an instant and looked at Versilia excitedly. After all, the root of this illness had tortured her for many years. Indeed. Versilia nodded. She looked at Dustless and said, yes, it was my husband who cured her. Husband? Hearing Versilia's address, the corner of Grievous's mouth twitched. She looked at Dustless unhappily with dissatisfaction in her eyes. It was as if she was saying, "My school has become your harem. Why did you save me?" Grievous suddenly asked. She still didn't believe that there was a free lunch in this world. However, perhaps because she was impatient, Dustless's valiant answer stunned Grievous. She was in a daze and didn't move like a statue. "Girl, where did you get so much nonsense from? I just want to show off in front of you and show off my superiority, okay? I want you to admire and worship me, okay? Can't I?" Dustless casually found an excuse. He really didn't know where Grievous got so much nonsense from. "I saved you out of kindness, but you still have so much nonsense to say. This reason is too. Alright, I have no choice but to accept this reason of yours. I admit defeat." Grievous had no choice but to lower her head in shame. After hemming and hawing for a long time, Grievous was still at a loss for words. Dustless words were like a bomb in the deep sea, exploding the wisdom in her mind beyond the 9 heavens. Encountering such a person who didn't play according to common sense, even an immortal would have a headache. Pfft, looking at Grievous's tearless expression, Versilia pursed her lips and chuckled. She could understand her pain because back then, she was dizzy from being angered by Dustless. Dustless's eloquence was extensive and profound. Even if it was a random excuse, she knew that he was spouting nonsense, but the most painful thing was that she couldn't refute it. In fact, Dustless didn't have any other thoughts. Anyway, he had nothing to do. Although Grievous was a snobbish woman, he couldn't deny that she took good care of him. There was no harm in helping her this once. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2264. Yes, I have made up my mind. I will not continue to participate in the king's selection. Although she couldn't figure out why Ross was so serious, Amelia nodded firmly, a smile suddenly hung on her face, and she said softly, "Dustless said that no matter what it is, as long as you are happy and have no regrets, maybe the greatest joy in my life is that I got to know him. About the king's selection, even if I withdraw, I will not regret it." Amelia's tone was resolute and unwavering. "It's that damn guy Dustless again, what kind of charm does he have?" Ross's face twitched and he almost roared out. "Pay attention to your words, Ross." Amelia's gem-like crystal pupils flashed with a chill. Dustless has been regarded as the most important person by her. Pay attention to my words. Lady Amelia. No. I can't call you that now, I should use you. I can't call you Lady Amelia, I can just call you Amelia. Ross's face was cold and he said disdainfully, "Since you have given up on the king's selection, I don't have to respect you. Not only that, but now I will dominate your will and let you continue to participate in the king's selection. You have no choice." "What do you mean, Ross?" Amelia's face changed greatly when she heard the words, and she was stunned. At this moment, he was so strange. "The meaning is very simple, you have to participate even if you don't want to." Now that he had torn his face, Ross did not hide it and said coldly, "You have no choice, you have to play this game to the end, you have to get the position of king, and help me slay the dragon." Slay the dragon. Amelia stared at the crazy Ross and saw the ambition in the depths of his eyes. Only then did she realize that she seemed to have fallen into a huge conspiracy. Perhaps at the beginning, the reason why Ross supported her to participate in the king's selection was to complete the so-called slaying of the dragon. "What is your intention to slay the dragon?" Amelia clenched her fists. At this moment, Ross was so strange and terrible, his eyes were like black holes that wanted to swallow the whole world. "I won't hide it from you, Amelia." Roswald's gaze was unusually cold. "Do you know why I support you to participate in the selection? It's because after you become the king, I can use your identity to slay a dragon and use the dragon's blood to revive my master. This is the reason why I supported you to become the king. But now that you want to withdraw, do you think I'll let you go so easily? Don't be childish. You don't have a choice. You must participate. Use the dragon's blood to revive your master. Amelia's face turned to one side and she looked at Roswald with a wary look. Obviously, this guy was going to use tough means. My master is the Witch of Lust. Roswald said softly, a touch of nostalgia suddenly appeared in his cold eyes. I've been struggling at death's door for 400 years, just for one purpose, to resurrect master. I can only use the dragon's blood, so do you think I will let you give up the king's choice? That's just wishful thinking. Roswald looked at Amelia. At this moment, his eyes were cold again, flashing with green light, like a poisonous snake hidden in the dark. So, what you did in the past was to use me. Amelia was hurt when she heard those words. Deep in her heart, she had always trusted Roswald. Even before Dustless appeared, she had always put Roswald's words in the first place. Nonsense, I invested in you because I saw your value. Otherwise, do you really think I'm interested in you? What a joke. You're also clear about your own status and situation. You're receiving everyone's hostility. Don't think that everyone will open their hearts and accept you like Wu Qin. You're too childish, Amelia. Roswald's face was full of disdain. Amelia was criticized because of her resemblance to the Witch of Jealousy. There were very few people who really accepted her, only the freak Dustless and the love-struck fool Tsukihara. If it weren't for your value, do you think I would approach you? Serve you as my master? That's ridiculous. Roswald sneered and immediately said, so in this game, you have no choice. Even if you don't want to play, you have to participate in it. If you can't get the position of king, then you can die. When his voice fell, Roswald's body burst out with a strong killing intent, and Amelia felt suffocated. Knock, knock, knock. At this moment, the sound of knocking on the door suddenly came in, and Rom came in with a tea set. Lady Amelia, you're... Lord Roswald, do you also need supper? Rom found that Roswald was also in Amelia's room, and was surprised, and immediately said, or Rom can go and prepare. Shoo shoo shoo. Before his voice fell, Roswald swept in front of Rom at an incredible speed, and there was a gloomy chill in the depths of his eyes. Rom, run, Roswald has changed. Amelia quickly reminded Rom when she caught the killing intent in Roswald's eyes. I'm sorry, Rom, although you are very important to me, but, compared with Master, no one is worth mentioning. My plan can't be exposed now. Only Amelia and I know about it, so I can only ask you to close your eyes forever. When his voice fell, Roswald directly locked Rom's throat and exerted his strength, trying to crush her throat alive. Lord Roswald, this scene came too suddenly, and Rom was subdued in an instant. He stared at the ferocious Roswald and felt inexplicably panicked. Is this still the very casual and caring Roswald? At this moment, it was as if he was possessed by a demon. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 evaluation votes plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2265. Lamu's heart was filled with shock. If it weren't for the feeling of suffocation, she would really think that this was a dream. It's too unrealistic. How could Sir Roswald, who has always been full of kindness, do such a cruel thing to her? If it weren't for the suffocation that made her uncomfortable, maybe Lamu would really think that this was a dream. After all, Roswald's impression is very friendly. He often dresses up as a clown. He doesn't have any airs. He is very amiable and he looks approachable, but at the moment, he is so scary. Especially the green eyes, they are terrible as if they want to devour people. Ah. I haven't exposed you yet and you can't wait to do it, A ghostly voice suddenly burst out and Ross Swire was shocked. He looked back and saw that it was a heavy punch that hit him back. Boom! There was no mercy in this punch and Roswald was directly blown out. It was very miserable. With a crack, several teeth were smashed out by the punch. Bastard, who attacked me? Roswald was furious and grimaced in pain. For the first time in so many years, he was so embarrassed and his old face suddenly became ferocious. Who is it? Not only Roswald, but Amelia also stared at the figure in the darkness. Hee. How long has it been, have you forgotten me? Anyway, I have been a housekeeper in your house for a few days, Roswald, it's not kind of you to forget me so quickly. A playful voice came from the darkness, and then the mysterious figure moved, and a familiar outline came out with a bright smile on her face. Sister, are you okay? Rem ran to Lama nervously and looked left and right, especially the red handprint on Lama's neck, which made Rem angry. Perhaps if the other party was not Roswald, she would have smashed the other party to pieces with a meteor hammer. You bastard, you actually came back, aren't you helping Kurth participate in the king selection? Roswald wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and his eyes were gloomy. But this is just right, I was just about to settle our grievances, damn bastard. Regarding the impression of Dushless, Roswald only had one feeling, an unforgettable hatred. It was because of this guy's appearance that all the factors that were beneficial to him had turned into unfavorable ones. Everything had turned into bubbles. The entire plan had failed because of this Dushless. Are you all right, Amelia? Dustless quietly walked to Amelia's side. Seeing that she was safe and sound and only a little frightened, he nodded. Settle accounts with me. Was this a joke? With all due respect, this joke isn't funny at all. Dustless glanced at Roswald faintly and said indifferently, you are too weak. If you want to deal with me, you have to be at least 1,000 times stronger. Are you looking down on me? Ross Sware's face changed and he stared at Dustless gloomily. Finally, he could understand the bitterness of Kaitsuki Subaru at that time. This guy's words were too irritating and he deserved a beating. Sir Roswald, why did you hurt my sister? Rem's pretty face was angry. The scar on Rem's neck deeply stimulated her. Perhaps if it weren't for Dushless, Rem would have suffocated to death at this moment. Reason? What reason do I need? Roswald asked indifferently and immediately said, if I have to find a reason, it's because she hindered me, too much of a hindrance. After these words, not to mention Rem and Rem, even Dustless frowned, but there was nothing unexpected. Roswald in the original work was actually such a person. In order to resurrect his master, he could sacrifice anyone, even the closest people. A mere Rem was really nothing to him. Roswald, I used to think that you were a pervert, but now it seems that you are not only a pervert, but also a beast in human face. Amelia also glared at him angrily. Her beautiful eyes seemed to explode with anger. When Lamu heard this, he was just dumbfounded. He looked straight at Roswald with a dull expression. There were tears brewing on both sides of his eyes. Perhaps it was because he couldn't hold back, Lamu finally cried out, bastard, you deserve to die. Rem also looked at Roswald as if looking at the Grim Reaper, her eyes were piercing and without the slightest emotion. You are really ignorant. You have lived for hundreds of years and you don't even understand some small truths. Focusing on Roswald, Dustless lowered his voice and said slowly, your so-called plan to resurrect your master is just a boring farce. She has disappeared for hundreds of years. Even if she opens her eyes again, what can she do? Do you think she will thank you? You are really ignorant. What do you mean? Roswald looked at Dustless with a bad face and his tone was extremely hoarse. The reason is very simple. Dustless glanced at Roswald faintly, your master has disappeared for hundreds of years. Even if you resurrect her, do you think you can capture her heart? Will she thank you and devote herself to you? What a naive idea. Gratitude is not equal to love or liking. Sometimes I really think that you haven't grown up. Roswald's face changed. In fact, the Witch of Lust was not only his master, but Roswald also liked his master. This idea is too naive. Your master has no interest in you. She is just a simple disciple. On the contrary, you hurt the people who really care about you. With all due respect, for an ancient figure who exists in history, you hurt the people who really care about you and like you. Are you mentally retarded? P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 evaluation votes plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2266. Retard. Being ridiculed by Dustless like this, Roswald's face immediately changed as he twitched and scolded angrily. Little brat, I have lived for hundreds of years, and what I have seen is more than what you eat. I have lived for nearly 1,000 years. Dustless sneered and interrupted Roswald. In front of me, you are not even suitable to be my grandson. No, you are not even suitable to be my great-grandson. You are courting death. Unable to bear it any longer, Roswald was furious as he turned into a gust of wind and rushed over. His hands were like the claws of an eagle as he tried to crush Dustless's neck. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. It was also at this instant that a black shadow suddenly scurried in front of Dustless. Moreover, it slashed out with a backhand. So fast. Roswald's pupils suddenly shrank a few times as he realized that the incoming flash was extremely dangerous. He quickly retreated and distanced himself from Dustless and others. Who dares to ruin my good deed? Roswald was furious as he stared at the black shadow. Reckless thing, even my. You are. Gut Hunter, Alyssa. Why aren't you dead yet? Impossible, you should have been buried by me. The moment he saw who it was, Roswald instantly showed a dull expression. Why, a person who should have been secretly killed by you suddenly came back to life. Is it a big blow to you? But it makes sense when you think about it. For a person with strong control like you, it is indeed difficult for you to accept the sudden resurrection of a person who should have died. Alyssa looked at Roswald with hatred, gritting her teeth as if she wanted to kill him herself. Dustless, why are you with such a bad woman? Amelia quickly came over and stood in front of Dustless, seemingly to protect him. You little girl. Dustless scratched Amelia's nose in annoyance, rolled his eyes and said, Really, do I still need your protection? Amelia, you underestimate me too much. Don't worry, Alyssa is now one of us. One of our own. Amelia looked at Dustless suspiciously. Even Rem and Lom looked at Dustless in shock. They didn't know what method he had used to tame Alyssa. Just by hearing the terrifying nickname of Gut Hunter, one would know how difficult it was to deal with her. Dustless, Kuan, this guy once tried to assassinate my big sister. Rem looked at Dustless with dissatisfaction, as if asking why he wanted to team up with a bad woman. Not bad. Amelia nodded and frowned. Not only that, I was almost killed by this evil woman. It's not that I'm paranoid, but this woman really isn't trustworthy. Perhaps you're taking her in, or is there some other reason? At this point, Amelia looked at Dustless meaningfully. Other reasons? Dustless looked at Amelia strangely and suddenly smelled a sour smell. He asked curiously, Why don't you say it? Chapter 2267. Looking straight at Alice, Dustless had mixed feelings. After all, something like that had happened between him and her sister. He organized his thoughts and was about to speak when Alice suddenly pounced on him. I say. What happened to you? Dustless could not help but stare with a dumbfounded expression. At this moment, Alice was hugging him so tightly that his bones were about to break. Why did the usually gentle and shy Alice take the initiative? There must be something wrong. What happened to me? Alice pouted and retorted with dissatisfaction, don't you know? This answer is too hurtful. Little girl. Dustless scratched Alice's nose and scolded her, you're so young and you've already learned to be jealous. This is not good. Versilia is your elder sister no matter what. Sister. Hearing Dustless's advice, Alice could only laugh bitterly and ask dejectedly, do you think she treats me as her sister? She even snatched away the person I cherished the most. I realized that I was too weak in the past. I must constantly strive for self-improvement in the future. At this point, Alice suddenly became spirited, her eyes as bright as the stars. No, I'm asking you on behalf of Claire and the others. Why did you do that with my sister? Alice asked in dissatisfaction, her tone carrying a hint of resentment. Asking on behalf of others. Hearing this, Dustless looked at Alice with a half-smile and teased, if you were the one asking, I would be interested in answering. If it's them, forget it. If he could avoid answering the questions of those jealous people, he would try his best to avoid getting himself into trouble. Hurry up and say it. Alice said in dissatisfaction as she pinched Dustless's waist slightly. This. Dustless had a slight headache. Then, he rolled his eyes and said, the key is that I'm too kind. Your sister's standards are too high. She won't marry anyone other than a great genius like me. So, I reluctantly let her get away with it and prevent Versilia from becoming a widow. Am I very noble? Pfft. Hearing this, Alice smiled, but she quickly restrained herself. After all, this was her elder sister. Then how do you plan to take responsibility for Claire and the others? Alice suddenly changed the topic and said seriously, you know how they feel about you, don't you? A few of them. Dustless blinked, and then teased, don't tell me they don't include you. Guess. This time, Alice wasn't as shy as before. Instead, she took the initiative to approach Dustless. The two of them were so close that they could even feel each other's breathing. It was because she had been too reserved in the past and didn't know how to take the initiative. In the end, her barrier, Versilia, beat her to it. Thinking about it now, Alice was filled with regret. Forget it. Sometimes it's tiring to have too many girlfriends. Dustless suddenly shook his head. Why? Alice asked after being stunned for a moment. Didn't every man desire to have 3,000 female confidants? My kidneys are tired. Dustless answered with a smirk. You scoundrel. Hearing this, Alice's pretty face turned red. After rolling her eyes at Dustless, she said with a complicated expression, but it's normal to have many wives and concubines. Not to mention you, even those slightly wealthy nobles all have countless wives and lovers. Is that so? Dustless stroked his chin, and then muttered to himself, then I'm so powerful, but I'm still alone. Am I too restrained? You can try. Alice wasn't angry. Instead, she smiled and said, but Claire wanted me to tell you something. If you dare to mess around, she doesn't mind making you unable to be a man. Make me unable to be a man. That little girl's tone is really big. She really dares to say some things. Dustless sighed with emotion. Soon after, he sighed faintly. Everything that should be settled has been settled. It's about time to leave this world. As for the so-called Elven Sword Dance Festival, Dustless wasn't interested in participating. It was too boring. Although he won in the end and could fulfill his wish, Dustless treated it as a joke. Wishes weren't easy to fulfill. Everything had its limits. Therefore, Dustless wasn't very interested. In short, it was time to leave. But speaking of which, why are you looking for me? Dustless's gaze circled around Alice. He didn't believe that this was a coincidence. Previously, Dustless had felt that Alice was hiding nearby. He just didn't point it out. Come with me. Alice didn't pretend anymore. She pulled dustless and left. Her expression was a little strange. Her face was bright red, as if she was embarrassed about something that was hard to talk about. Don't tell me you're working with Claire and the others to trick me. Alice. Dustless looked at Alice suspiciously. He always felt that this chick's behavior today was too abnormal. Not only did she take the initiative to hug him, but now she wanted to pull him to a private meeting. Is this still the shy Alice? Of course not. Am I that kind of person in your eyes? Alice pretended to be sad and shook her head. She immediately explained, I'll be frank with you. In fact, it was Grievous who asked me to come to you. That old witch. Dustless was relieved. Since the old witch learned medical ninjutsu, she had been chasing after Dustless. Even in her dreams, she wanted to take Dustless as her own. Let's go and see what she's up to. Anyway, that old witch is no match for me. After thinking about it, Dustless was relieved. Some things can't be solved clearly, and there will be a series of troubles. It's best to solve it as soon as possible. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2268. There were some things that couldn't be avoided. Moreover, Dustless was about to leave this world. If he could solve it, he would solve it well and not leave any regrets. Lead the way. Dustless looked at Alice and followed her. In the past, they always met in Grieva's office, which was slightly different. Now, they were meeting in her home, which was more luxurious than expected. After all, Grievous was the boss of Alicia Elf Academy. Old witch, what's the matter? Wu Qin lay on the sofa very casually with his legs crossed. He didn't treat her as an outsider at all. Of course. Grievous pursed her lips and didn't mind. If she had Dustless's ability, perhaps she would be even more unbridled and arrogant. Dustless remained silent and looked at Grievous quietly, waiting for her to say something. Have a glass of water first. At this moment, Alice suddenly brought a glass of hot water over and passed it to Alice. Alice is still the best. Much better than a certain someone. You don't know the rules of hospitality at all. Dustless received the glass of water with a smile and finished it in one gulp. I hope you can reconsider what I said earlier. Seeing that Dustless had finished drinking the water, a strange look flashed across Grievous's eyes. It seemed that Dustless was already in her hands. She spoke with a hint of pride. So it's still this matter. Dustless shook his head and didn't feel any different. He knew that Grievous wouldn't give up so easily. Old Demonis, I'm not interested in your ambitions, so don't expect me to be in the same boat with you. Give up. Dustless was straightforward and didn't give Grievous any chance to maneuver. What if I force you to do this? Grievous stared at Dustless and said in a tone that didn't leave any room for maneuver. Force me. Dustless grinned, but it was a little bone-chilling. Then you should be prepared to be trampled on. I won't let you off easily from your body to your mind. Have you seen Celestia? That chick is now obedient to me. Do you want to be like that too? Let's not talk about other things first. How do you feel? Gruas brushed it off with a smile, not minding Dustless's threat. How do you feel? Dustless raised his brows slightly, feeling that Gruas was implying something. He asked in puzzlement, what do you mean? This fellow. However, Grievous opened her eyes wide as she said in shock in her heart, don't tell me he is fine. I know that Dustless is powerful and unfathomable, but I have also increased the dosage. Yet, he is completely fine. Isn't that a little too exaggerated? Grievous's face was filled with disbelief as she sized up Dustless as though she had seen a ghost. Is there something wrong with this old Demonis? Or Wu Chen's gaze changed slightly as he suddenly looked at Alice. His gaze was extremely cold in an instant. However, Alice was like a little girl who had done something wrong. She hurriedly lowered her head in shame. You guys worked together to trick me. Dustless's face darkened. Things had developed to this point. If he still didn't understand anything, wouldn't he be an idiot? You can't put it that way. Grievous shook her head and said sternly, we just wanted to pull you back from the crooked path. There's no such thing as a trick. In other words, you admit it. Dustless narrowed his eyes. A dangerous glint flickered in the slits of his eyes. Old woman, you are playing with fire. I saved you previously. Not only did you not thank me, but now you dare to scheme against me. Even if I kill you, it will be normal. Dustless was about to release his murderous aura when he suddenly felt dizzy. His body also inexplicably heated up. Hee. Seeing Dustless's cheeks turn red in an instant, Gruas nodded and smiled. You gave me a fright. I thought it wouldn't work on you. I thought you were immune to too many aphrodisiacs. Pfft. Hearing that, Dustless spat out all the water in his lungs. Moreover, it was extremely unfortunate that Grievous was sitting opposite him. All the water sprayed onto her body, instantly becoming a drowned rat. Ah, aphrodisiac. Alice screamed and asked in disbelief, didn't you say it was just a knockout drug? The Dean only wanted to drug Dustless. This bastard. Grievous's face was ashen. Her entire body was drenched by Dustless's saliva. This was the first time someone dared to spray her with saliva. Unforgivable. If I told you it was an aphrodisiac, would you still do it according to my wishes? Grievous looked at Alice and asked indifferently. Besides, you don't have to feel embarrassed. I'm just imitating your sister's method. It's just that it's more extreme. Besides, didn't you want to get Dustless? Let's do it this way. Do it with him now. Although Dustless is a cold person, he will definitely not abandon you after what you did with him. Old witch, it seems like you know me well. Dustless sneered. Looking at Grievous who was drenched by his saliva, for some reason, the resentment in his stomach disappeared. However, an unknown flame in his heart spurted into his head, messing up Dustless's thoughts. His thoughts weren't clear as though they were paste. Can I really do it? Alice blushed. Looking at the dizzy Dustless, she found it difficult to take action. Isn't it too despicable to take advantage of someone's perilous state? Although I hate Dustless, this guy is right about one thing. Grievous scrutinized the blushing Dustless and lamented. Bad guys live for 1,000 years while good guys don't. This guy isn't without reason. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2269. The moment this black ball shot out, Dustless aimed at Rom and launched his powerful ability again. 10,000 Mammoth Heaven Summoning. Roswald's attention has always been focused on the black, truth-seeking ball. This black ball seems harmless to humans and animals, but it gives him a feeling of danger and unusual uneasiness, so Roswald neglected his control of Rom, causing her to fly over at once. Damn it! Seeing this, Roswald cursed and hurriedly rushed to Rom. Even if he died, he wanted to drag her down with him. Boom! 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 However, the idea is often beautiful, but the reality is very cruel. Before he got close to Rom, Roswald was blasted by the black ball, and his body exploded in an instant, and even the residue was inexplicably evaporated without leaving any residue. What a miserable ending, but he disappeared without a trace. Consider yourself lucky. If there was a corpse left behind, I will definitely let you see what horror is. Ilusa said with a bloodthirsty look on her face. She also hated Roswald very much. After all, she was killed once. If it weren't for Dushless, she would have died a long time ago. No matter what, this guy is dead. You two should get over it. My condolences. Staring at the two sisters, Dustless persuaded, you are still very young. On the contrary, Roswald is an old monster of more than 400 years old. Of course, I am not qualified to talk about him because I am much older than him. Anyway, your future life will be better. You may have lived for Roswald in the past, but from now on, you will live for yourself. But sister is sick, she has been, I know Rom's problem, leave it to me. Dustless interrupted Rom directly and said with a smile, I know that Rom's horn is broken, and she needs others to replenish her magic power. This is a small problem, don't worry. Yes. Rom also nodded slightly. She didn't deny such a private issue. She had already regarded Dushless as one of her own in her heart. Although I can't help you replenish your magic power, but... At this point, Dustless paused and said calmly, however, I can make Rom's broken horn condense again, this kind of thing can be done. Lom sucked in a breath of cold air when he heard this. He had long since known that Dushless was omnipotent, but he hadn't expected him to be this powerful. Even things like regrowing severed limbs could be done. This is nothing. My internal organs were destroyed by Roswald, but Sir still saved me. Thinking of Dustless's ability, Alyssa was extremely fanatical and her eyes were full of worship, like a crazy believer. By the way, Amelia. Dustless suddenly looked at Amelia. Seeing the bright smile on her face, he asked curiously, is there something you're happy about? Of course, the scourge Roswald is gone, and Rem and Rom are liberated. I'm naturally happy. Chapter 2270. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, it was the next morning. Without the scourge of Roswald, this huge villa had a lot more vitality. God gave them face and revealed a bright sunny day. Speaking of which, if you rest lazily like this, Miss Kurth might not be able to hold on and be defeated by the other candidates. You think too much. That little girl isn't as fragile as you think. She's very strong, just like a willow branch in the cold winter. Even if she only swings with the wind, as long as the spring breeze blows, she will seize the opportunity to revive a withered tree. Dustless was full of confidence in Kurth, and it wasn't difficult to see that he admired her. Praising another girl in front of another girl, this kind of behavior, is very impolite and makes people feel uncomfortable. I feel like I'm being ignored by everyone, Wuchin. Amelia pouted her red and moist lips in dissatisfaction. Amelia was extremely dissatisfied. Is that so? Dustless rolled his eyes and said snappily, I still vaguely remember that you decisively betrayed me and agreed to my marriage with Kurth. Isn't that for your own good? Isn't it great to get a beautiful wife for you? You took advantage of me and still acted like you're innocent, Amelia said righteously, not feeling that she had done anything wrong. Dustless didn't say anything. Being unreasonable was a woman's characteristic, and there was no need to argue with her. Speaking of which, how is Rom? Amelia said worriedly when she thought of Rom's condition. Lady Amelia, don't worry. Sister is fine. Rem, who was wearing a maid's outfit, walked over slowly with a steaming hot morning tea in her hand. She looked at Dustless gratefully and said, the horns on sister's head can grow again. After saying that, Rem bowed to Dustless gratefully. You're welcome. This is a small problem. Dustless waved his hand and said calmly, it's not a big problem. It just took some time. Took some time. Hearing this, Amelia's face darkened, and the corner of her mouth twitched. Dustless's words made it sound like it was a trivial matter. By the way. Suddenly remembering something, Amelia looked at Dustless and said, Roswald is dead, there is no point for us to stay here, do you want to go together? Amelia's words came to an abrupt halt as she looked at Dustless. Dustless put down the cup of hot tea in his hand, his eyes flashing with a cold light. Dustless, Kun, did something happen? Rem also looked at Dustless in confusion and guessed, could it be that something happened to Miss Kirst? That's not it. That woman isn't that weak. Dustless shook his head and coldly said, it's just that we've been targeted by a group of shrimp soldiers and crab generals. They really overestimated themselves. Under the perception of Kenbun-shoku, observation, Haki, Dustless clearly felt that there were many strange figures around the villa, all of them were witch followers, and they were densely packed in a large area. These guys still don't want to give up. Hearing Dustless's words, Lom and Amelia both moved closer to the window and looked down. Groups of witch cult members were invading, and there was no end to them. Give up. They will never give up easily if we don't destroy these guys. Dustless explained, the people of witch religion intend to resurrect the witch of jealousy. If you want them to give up, you either have to hand over Amelia, the test vessel, or, Dustless's tone paused slightly and said fiercely, burn these fools with fire, but my last plan seems to have failed. Raising his head to look at the sky, he saw a figure rapidly flying over from the distant horizon. This person had green hair, and his eyes were sunken, without any emotion. He looked extremely sinister, and the skin all over his body was withered, as if all the blood in his body had been sucked out, leaving behind only an empty shell. Petruchius. This guy is here again, how long has it been? Didn't he die for the crime of sloth? Is there a mistake? How long has it been since the last time? Why is he here again so soon? Does he need to be so diligent? Dustless muttered to himself. The plan failed. What plan? Amelia looked at Dustless in confusion, and so did Remington. Although he heard Dustless mention it last time, he didn't know what it was. Petruchius. Although this guy's strength is average, his ability is a bit tricky. Even if I kill him now, this guy can still be resurrected. Dustless explained slowly, he knew Petruchius very well. Why? Amelia asked curiously. Because this guy is more troublesome than I thought. While he died for the crime of being a member of the witch sect, he has another side that no one knows. He is an elf. His name is Hughes, and he is an extremely evil elf with the nature of possession. Do you understand now? Dustless said slowly. An elf with the nature of possession. Amelia was shocked and asked subconsciously, does that mean he can possess other people's bodies? Yes, it is indeed such an evil creature. Dustless nodded gently upon hearing that and calmly explained, Petruchius can carry out unilateral possession. He chose a group of fingers as a vessel for his clones and left, invisible hand, in these people's bodies. Even if I kill him, this guy can break out of his cocoon and be reborn. Dustless explained. Although Petruchius seemed crazy and arrogant, this guy was actually very careful and could even be considered as a scheming old fox. Keek keek, before landing on the ground, a gloomy sound came from his throat. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2271. That's right. It is indeed this evil creature. Dustless nodded gently and explained calmly, Petruchius can possess a body unilaterally. He chose a group of fingers as a container for his doppelgangers and left, invisible hand, in their bodies. Even if I kill him, this guy can break out of his cocoon and be reborn. Dustless explained. Although Petruchius looked crazy and arrogant, this guy was actually very cautious and could even be said to be astute. Keek keek, before landing on the ground, a gloomy voice came out from his throat. Petruchius was valiant and high-spirited as he looked down at Dustless from above. Looking up, Petruchius was standing in the sky. His gaze swept across several people one by one. When it fell on Amelia, a hint of covetousness and fanaticism flashed in his eyes. When he saw Dushless, his face was full of bad luck as if he had encountered a jinx. Really? Am I that annoying? The difference between your expression before and after is too big. Dustless couldn't help but roll his eyes. He immediately looked at Petruchius and said coldly, "Are you going to kill yourself, or do I have to kill you myself?" "Humph, you damn heretic. Don't be so sure of your words. Let me tell you, the troops I brought this time are 10 times more than the last time." Petruchius was full of confidence. He stood in the sky and looked very domineering. Countless large black hands were dragging his body. It was just that Dushless and others couldn't see it. "Is that so? There are quite a lot of them, but..." Dustless's eyes suddenly narrowed and he sneered, "In the face of absolute strength, what can numbers do? What can it change? You brought so many people with you. In fact, this is just to cover up your own weakness. I originally planned to let you live for a few days, but since the plan failed, you will die here today. As for those fingers of yours, you can slowly kill them one by one." Petruchius had left the flying thunder god warlock on his body. As long as he met with his fingers, Dustless would immediately appear and eliminate them. In this way, he would be able to rest in peace. However, it had only been a few days, and Petruchius hadn't even met with his subordinates yet, and this guy couldn't wait to knock on his door. Perhaps, he naively thought that he could crush Dustless with a sea of people. "Rem, Amelia, the two of you should take Ram and leave. The further the better. This kind of villa will no longer exist." Dustless gave the two girls a serious look, then urged them to leave. "Keek keek." Hearing that, Petruchius sneered and said in disdain, "Now that things have come to this, you still want to play the hero saving the damsel in distress. You're bored to death. You'd better think about how to save your lives." "We understand." Rem and Amelia looked at each other. They also understood that they would only be a burden to Dustless if they stayed, so they left tactfully. Before they left, they only asked him to be careful with Petruchius. "No, no. This isn't a hero saving the damsel in distress. I'm not interested in that kind of child's play. If I'm interested in something, I'll just snatch it." Dustless sneered and said, "The supreme power can dominate everything." Hee hee. "Heathen, I like your words." Petruchius nodded repeatedly, then he started to bite his fingers in an extremely perverted manner. Creak, creak, creak. "If you didn't insult Lady Witch, you might have a great destiny with my sect." Petruchius had a look of pity on his face, then his expression suddenly changed. He looked at Dustless with a murderous look. "What a pity. You damned guy insulted Lady Witch, so you must die here. Then I'm really sorry. The person who will die here won't be me, but you." Dustless faced Petruchius' vicious gaze, but his expression did not change. "Also, you seem to have misunderstood something. I asked Amelia and the rest to run far away. I'm not a hero saving the damsel in distress." Bang! At that moment, the glass in front of Dustless suddenly shattered, and his body slowly flew into the sky. He stood in the void and looked at Petruchius calmly. "I can't deny that you brought too many minions with you this time. You need a large-scale killing move. If that happens, this villa will be turned into ruins. I asked them to leave. I'm just afraid that the aftershock will destroy them. After all, with their level, they're still far from being able to withstand that move." Looking at the countless Demonist sect members below, they were densely packed together like a swarm of ants, covering the entire ground. "Tremble, ants." Dustless's left eye suddenly changed. The black pupil disappeared and was replaced by a scarlet Rinsei Sharingan. He hugged the vast sky with both hands, and an extremely terrifying wave of destruction was brewing in his body. Gulp. Looking into Dushless' eyes, Bertruccius suddenly had a bad feeling that a disaster was about to befall him. Super Shinra Tensei. A shockwave visible to the naked eye suddenly erupted from Wu Chen's body. The moment it flashed, it spread out without limit. In the blink of an eye, the entire manor was burned down. The terrifying repulsive force crushed everything like dry weeds and smashed rotten wood. The most terrifying thing was that Ross's villa completely disappeared, and an unprecedented super crater appeared on the ground as if it was hit by a meteorite. It made one's soul tremble. Can a human make such a terrifying attack? It was worth mentioning that the countless witch disciples disappeared without a trace. The sky was blue, and even the remains of their bodies were not left. It was as if they had evaporated into thin air. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2272. What have you done? What have you done with my lovely disciple? Hand them over to me now. After being stunned for a moment, Bertruccius actually screamed and cried bitterly. In the end, his face was covered in tears. Idiot, has your brain been damaged by the aftermath of the Super Shinra Tensei? We are enemies. Since we are enemies, we will naturally fight to the death. Dushless looked at Bertruccius quietly. As this guy was standing in the sky with the help of the big black hand, he avoided the impact of the Super Shinra Tensei, and was lucky enough to escape with his life. Aw, aw, aw. Ow, ow, ow. The heart-wrenching cry resounded through the blue sky, and the world was silent. Only Dushless looked at Bertruccius silently. His group of followers had all been turned into ashes. I want you to die with me. Bertruccius's face was trembling with anger. Originally, he wanted to capture Amelia alive and kill Dustless while he was at it, but who would have thought that this guy would counterattack? The people who should have been killed were all fine, but his own people were all wiped out. Bertruccius was also pitifully reduced to a commander without an army. Go to hell. With a wave of his hand, a large amount of black fog erupted from behind Bertruccius. Countless purple-black hands swept out of the fog and slapped the lazy Dustless in unison. Bang bang bang. Dustless did not dodge and just stood there quietly. His body was suddenly smashed into pieces. Just like the witch's disciples, because the destruction was too thorough and straightforward, not even a corpse was left behind. He disappeared inexplicably. You're really lucky. She let you die so easily. Her Highness Demoness really cherishes you. Bertruccius narrowed his eyes slightly and looked up a few times, but he did not find Dustless's corpse. He was so angry that he cursed loudly. Hee, not only does your witch take pity on me, but she also has an affair with me. Look, she doesn't even want to hurt me. A ripple appeared in the air as Dustless's extremely annoying voice came from an unknown place, and then his body slowly recovered. Arrogant bastard, you actually dare to slander the great Demoness. Get out here quickly, I will tear you to pieces and fry you again. Bertruccius was furious, and he looked around with his protruding eyes. Poochie. A piercing pain suddenly spread throughout his body. Bertruccius suddenly lowered his gaze. He didn't know when it started, but a large bloody hole had opened up in his abdomen. The reason why I let you go earlier was because I had a plan. However, since that plan has failed, I can only crush this body of yours. As for the other clones, I'll take my time. Unknowingly, Dustless had appeared behind Bertruccius with a frivolous look on his face. With a big hole in his body, Bertruccius seemed to have been greatly insulted. He howled like a madman, and dense black hands once again erupted from his back. They were like a dark thousand-hand guanine, slapping towards Dustless in groups. How boring. Seeing this, Dustless shook his head gently and suddenly raised his right hand. The pores on his palm opened, and blood-red chakra flowed out, as hot as magma. Although he couldn't see these big black hands, it didn't mean that Dustless didn't have any means to subdue them. Uchiha Flame Formation. As soon as these few words fell, the temperature in the air suddenly increased by hundreds of times, and the ground trembled. In an instant, the ground collapsed, and dark red-hot magma flowed out. "Rise!" Dustless shouted, and the magma on the ground suddenly rose rapidly. In an instant, it erupted tens of meters high, and condensed into a terrifying magma barrier, covering the sky and the earth. It was bright red, and even the sky became dark red. Puchi! 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 Before the big black hands touched Dustless's body, they were dismembered by the deadly high temperature, and the big black hands that filled the sky were eliminated in a flash. What the hell is this thing, so powerful? Also, where did that bastard come from? Is he a god? I have never heard of such a terrifying move. Staring at the flame barrier not far in front of him, Bertruccius seemed to have been awakened by the heat, and he regained his senses. He looked at the flame barrier in panic. From 100 meters away, he could feel that his body was about to melt and be completely absorbed. What will happen? Thinking of this, Bertruccius subconsciously took a few steps back. This barrier was too dangerous. Buzz! At the same time, a flash condensed behind Bertruccius, and Dustless's outline slowly appeared, covered with a flash of light, and greeted his body unceremoniously. Lightspeed kick. The powerful force easily kicked Bertruccius, who was in a daze, and he could even hear a caw-caw-caw sound. Dustless's kick even shattered his ribs. Oh! No! Bertruccius screamed hysterically, and his voice was filled with panic. The power of Dustless's kick was too strong. His body smashed into the flame barrier like a meteor, and Bertruccius, who was too weak, didn't stop at all. Stop pretending. Do you think I don't know that you have a lot of spare tires? Dustless snorted in disdain. At the same time, his body landed on the ground, but everything had changed. The luxurious villa with beautiful scenery was now in ruins, covered by a large amount of sand and dust, and turned into a dangerous place. The destruction within a radius of hundreds of meters was extremely thorough, and the super-huge pit swallowed everything. It was an exaggeration of dozens of meters deep. It was no wonder that Bertruccius was terrified. Anyone who encountered such a scene would feel despair. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus more chapters, 3,000 rewards plus more chapters, 1,000 comments plus more chapters, 500 automatic subscriptions plus more chapters. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.